Classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Here with the Black Pack. This is KBLA Talk 1580. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire. We are here every Friday trying to make sense of what is happening in this election, bringing folks to you from battleground states to talk about what is happening on the ground. Hopefully you learn about some people that you might not have known before. You learn a different dimension about what is happening in this election, because we're all trying to figure it out and get through it together. We have, in fact, 60 days till Election Day. And early vote obviously starts in many states in October. And I know that you all have been hearing me say that the ballots will go out in some states like North Carolina as soon as this week. However, having absentee ballots go out in North Carolina like they were supposed to today would be too much like right. So, of course, the ballots did not go out in North Carolina today as they were supposed to because RFK Jr. is holding them up. We're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but imagine being so willing to disrupt an election to give your candidate a better choice that you would deny voters access to the ballots that their state was supposed to send them. And that is what is happening today in North Carolina. We'll talk about that later. So we talked last week about Latino civil rights activists being targeted for registering people to vote. We talked about and have been talking about Georgia really since 2020. But the most recent decisions by the State Board of Elections is, sort of laying the groundwork for an excuse to not certify the Georgia election, all while making it easier to kick people off the voter rolls. And now we have North Carolina and Ohio entering the voter suppression and election subversion chat this week. So we'll talk about both North Carolina and Ohio in a little bit. But first, I think I want to introduce a segment called What the Candidates Are Saying. Because sometimes it's important to just listen to the candidates talk about what their plans are and just hear them in their own words. And this week, I had a flashback, actually, when I was listening to the candidates talk. I had a flashback about my own childhood and one of my very favorite Sesame Street segments. Yes, Sesame Street. I'm talking about Sesame Street today, Andy. So you all remember one of these things, right? It started out with a little jingle, and the jingle was, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. Can you tell me which thing is not like the other before I finish my song? You all remember that. I'm not going to sing it. And there you'd have these items people remember in these shadow boxes, and one of them would always be so obviously not like the other that you'd wonder if they were actually trying to play a trick on you. Well, that is actually very reminiscent, or at least was very reminiscent for me, of our presidential election in a nutshell. One of these things is not like the other. So let's take one issue and compare it. Let's take support for parents, working parents, and childcare. So on the one hand, we have Vice President Harris, who has cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate to pass bills like Build Back Better. The Biden-Harris administration has also invested historic amounts into childcare. Folks may remember that the American Rescue Plan, in fact, provided $39 billion, billion with a B dollars, in new childcare funding to provide, to help providers and families. And they've championed tax credits to provide meaningful relief for families as we've gone across these last 4 years. And her economic plans for her administration seek to build on and expand upon these policies. So let's take a listen to the vice president.
More than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut, and we will do this by restoring 2 tax cuts designed to help middle class and working Americans. The Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. Through which millions of Americans with children got to keep more of their hard-earned income. So as president, I'll not only restore that tax cut, but expand it. We will provide $6,000 in tax relief to families during the first year of a child's life.
Okay, so that is Vice President Harris giving very specific policy ideas for how she will help working families not just get ahead, but thrive, as she often says. In contrast, in this little segment of one of these things is not like the other, we have Donald Trump, who attempted to put forward an economic plan yesterday, and his answer to a question about what he would do to make childcare more affordable is actually the perfect example of his entire hollow, incoherent approach to America. But I'm gonna let you all listen and decide for yourselves.
That it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in.
Right. So again, one of these things is not like the other. Pick any issue. The whole idea that childcare is not expensive, that's not true. Ask any family who is having to deal with paying for childcare costs. But any issue, we could take childcare as one issue. One of these things attempts to address the underlying issues and explain how it will make things better for people. The other is a rambling word salad of nonsense that essentially amounts to "trust me, bro." Right? Here's a bunch of words I'm going to string together that don't actually belong in the same sentence, but trust me, bro, I'm going to get it done. The Sesame Street song, as you all might remember, ends by saying, if you guessed this thing is not like the other, if you guess this thing just doesn't belong, well, then you are absolutely correct. And the reality is that we all can tell the difference. And we should, try to make sure that we are listening to what the candidates are saying themselves, not necessarily taking the interpretation of the newspaper or journalists that we're reading, but just listen to them. So we're going to do this as we go through the rest of the cycle, is to just pick issues and compare them between the two candidates. But coming up, we're going to be joined by leaders from state and national organizations who are working to not only turn out voters, but who really are standing at the vanguard of protecting the integrity of our election process. On the other side, we're going to talk to folks in North Carolina and Ohio, talk with Marcus Bass and Rebecca Carruthers. Stay with us. We have a lot to talk about. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Asthma Peak Week is almost here, September 15th through 21st, and it's time to pay attention. Peak Week is a critical time of the year for asthma flare-ups and can lead to hospitalization. Did you know that Black Americans are approximately 5 times more likely than white Americans to be hospitalized for asthma? Stay aware, have a plan, and spread the word on Asthma Peak Week. For more active asthma care tips, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/DC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Diego.
Hi, Diego. It's Jennifer Coolidge. I just want to say your cashback match makes me feel so special. It really inspired me.
That's great. Doubling the cashback you've earned at the end of your first year is what we do.
Well, I'm doubling everything now. Double dating, double dipping, double feature, double header, double whammy. Basically double or nothing.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your Black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your Black Talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580. And right now I am joined once again, I should say, coming back once again is Marcus Bass, who's the Executive Director of Advance Carolina. How you doing, Marcus?
Doing good, Adrian. Good to see good to be with everybody, and good to be with the KBLA family.
So, Marcus, earlier at the top of the show, I talked about the fact, because I have been saying pretty consistently, right, as I've been trying to say to folks, like, now the election's not just happening on November 5th. The election's going to start sooner than that. And in fact, ballots are going to go out in North Carolina on September the 6th, right? I've been pretty consistent in saying that. And then today, lo and behold, ballots did not, in fact, go out in North Carolina. Can you talk to folks about what happened with RFK today and what that's going to mean for folks who vote absentee, had put in their applications requesting an absentee ballot, and now are actually not going to get them in the mail until sometime in the future?
That's right. And I appreciate you for allowing North Carolina to check in. Republicans in North Carolina, they've really been blindly following the mandate for hate and suppression fueled by Donald Trump since 2020. There are a lot of election deniers, individuals that have tried to undermine the results of the 2020 election, and now they're starting even earlier for the 2024 election.
Yep.
I think it's important to note that the RFK ballot is a process in which he sued a lot of states across the country just to get on the ballot, and now a month later he's suing to jump off of the ballot.
Right.
It's important because we already began the process of mailing out 130,000 ballots, absentee ballots that are going to some of our most vulnerable, our military populations, our college students, folks that are voting by mail, The cost of elections gets higher and higher every year. And some of these counties, they can't afford to take. They already spent half of the summer preparing these ballots, and now they're going to have to literally rip those up and start all over again, just because the Republicans have control of the judiciary that's saying that they have a right to interfere with a constitutional mandate to administer a proper election.
Right. And so I want you to repeat that one more time, which is that JFK sued to get on the ballot in some states. And now he is suing again to get off the ballot. And he's attempting to get off of the ballot in North Carolina. I don't know what he's saying his official reasons are. I would put forward that the reason why he's trying to get off the ballot is because he's worried that having his name on that ballot is going to draw votes away from his endorsed candidate, Donald Trump. So he's trying to have his name removed from the ballot. And the way that he has done that is to ensure that people don't get their ballots on time. Is that about the summation?
That's the summation. This court injunction by the Court of Appeals is really in favor of Donald Trump. It's not in favor of the people who need their ballot right now. I also want to note one thing that you mentioned. People may really think there's over 10 million voters registered in North Carolina right now. That list is growing every single day because of the work that your groups are doing, that we're doing across the state. Mm-hmm. But 130,000 ballots. The election was lost by 1% of the vote. Joe Biden lost 2020, 1%.
Right.
When we look at 130,000 ballots in a 2-week, 1-month delay, those are the margins that this election is going to dictate success or victory for any candidate, particularly candidates that are trying to undermine the election even before the election even starts.
Right. And Marcus, I hadn't even been thinking about a 1-month delay. Right. But it does, when I hear you say that, it makes me think about boards of elections being overwhelmed at the end of the election cycle. Right. So if there's a 1-month delay and because more people will request absentee ballots, right, like this is just the first set. And I know that, groups like ours and yours are in many ways encouraging people to vote absentee if they can to avoid the craziness of Election Day or even of the early vote periods. But it seems to me that if 130 at a minimum, right, absentee ballots come back in as things are starting to get hectic for election officials, that is also going to have, that will add a layer of chaos to the vote counting process.
That's right. And remember, for the first time in North Carolina, voters are having to show a form of photo voter ID. And the number of individuals that aren't prepared for that rule, now we're going to have to go into what's called a provisional ballot process where their ballot will have to be cured. That's an additional 25 to 30,000 votes on top of that 130,000 that are delayed right now. When we talk about, the 10,000 votes or even the 400 votes that Sherry Beasley, who ran for Senate, lost by in 2020, they have now figured out how to make the 1,000 cuts. When we talk about the death by 1,000 cuts, it doesn't mean that folks can't vote in force, doesn't mean that we can't fight back, but it does mean that they have control of the courts. And the next thing that they want to do is make sure they have control of every single branch of government so they can miscue this balance of power and undermine the people's power to vote.
I want to come back to the thing that you said about for the first time, people will have to show voter ID or photo ID, right? In this cycle, and have you talk about in the way that you did who's being impacted by the absentee ballots not going out, who is impacted by having to show photo ID, right? Because I think that this is this has been a challenge since the initial voter suppression laws started to hit states right during the Obama years. The sort of first wave of them were photo ID laws, and photo ID laws have different impact, right, for different segments, right, of the electorate. And so, who are you thinking in North Carolina is going to be impacted?
It's been a 15-year battle that the Republicans have waged on voting rights. And a former Supreme Court ruled that Republicans acted with surgical precision to undermine the right for black voters across North Carolina to effectively demonstrate their power through the ballot. And in this case, when we talk about photo voter ID, we have to think about the number of individuals. Right now, we're in the beginning of back to school. North Carolina has 10 historically black colleges. A number of those colleges bring in individuals from California, from across the country, to North Carolina A&T for 4 years, to North Carolina Central, to Shaw University. These campuses, they need the power of those students voting and making decisions in their local area. And now those students have to have a photo voter ID from the state of North Carolina in order to vote. In some cases, that's called an impediment.
Right.
Historically, it's been called a poll tax. And I think in reality, North Carolina is trying to follow a Republican playbook that continues to undermine and dilute the black vote from not just election cycle to election cycle, all the way back to the redistricting process, where they're able to draw the maps where we're packed and cracked into districts to dilute our vote even further.
Right. And so at a moment where it is very clear that North Carolina is a battleground state that is absolutely in play for the presidential election cycle, not to mention, right, that you all have a governor's race that I think we talked about the last time that you were on. And you all also have a state Supreme Court seat up as well, don't you?
That's right. That's right. We have only one black woman left on the state Supreme Court. And then in this moment, we have the opportunity to make sure there's at least an additional Democrat on the state Supreme Court to at least balance the power a little more. It's still uneven in favor of the Republicans, but, you know, if individuals do what they can and turn out this year, there is at least one chance at the judicial level, at the council of state level, and at the legislative level to regain some type of balance.
Right. So you have an opportunity in North Carolina to chip away at the conservative state Supreme Court. You have an opportunity to elect a governor who is going to have the best interests of North Carolinians at the top of his agenda and reject one who is a MAGA nut. Like, I don't even know what to call him at this point. And also to provide electoral college votes for the first black woman president. And in that moment, with those three things and more, right, at stake, you now have voter ID that will impact black students on HBCU campuses, so younger voters who are going to be critical to the election, potentially seniors who have to figure out if they don't have a photo ID, how they're going to go out and get one. You also have these ballots that are not going back, and it's unclear and an indeterminate amount of time for the delay that will also impact students and also impact folks in the military, right? The range of folks that you talked about. This is, it is not just the kind of ongoing assault that your, state legislature, right, has had for some time on black voters in the state, but it really is sort of, the perfect storm of the national Republican strategy, right, and the strategy that's been happening inside of y'all's state for a very, very long time, sort of coming together to, continue to disenfranchise and undermine black folks at a critical moment in this nation's history.
That's right. North Carolina is a battleground state, and folks really don't realize what that means. Mm-hmm. That means that there is an equal share of Democrat, Republican, and in this case in North Carolina, independent voters. Independent voters represent the largest voting share in North Carolina. And so with the voting registration totals that close in percentage, North Carolina can't be called as quickly as a state that is completely red or completely blue. And so the attempts that individuals in the General Assembly are making, individuals in the courts are making, all fueled by a radical right-wing agenda, really honestly is an attempt to chip away at the opportunity for us to really be a competitive state when we talk about the issues that are at stake in the black community. A lot of times when we talk to these candidates, we miss some of the real nuances of what matters in North Carolina because they're having to spend so much time arguing the point in a broader audience in TV and radio, and not necessarily getting in these conversations exactly like what you're doing. They're having to spend time, placing ads. We need those individuals in North Carolina listening to our groups, listening to Black PAC, listening to Advanced Carolina, because they don't have any other way to see their way through this battleground, through this war. And it's not just a political war. It's an economic war. It's an education war. It's a war on black maternal health. All these things come in play But we missed that kind of just following CNN and Fox News, which is why it's great that you have this platform, not just in LA, but where we can listen on the app across the country and really be on the same page. Because what's happening in North Carolina is no different than what they're trying to do across the South.
That's
and
right.
we can stop it. I don't want folks to feel like it is hopeless or we're helpless, because the fact of the matter is we're winning. You know, if we keep voting, if we turn out, not just for one person, but for our issues and for our people, you know, we can beat this fight back against this radical racist agenda.
Yeah, and I will say that the proof of that is in our own history, right? And then not even our recent history, right? Like the ability for people to overcome these obstacles, and it's because of the hard work that groups like Advance Carolina gets done, right? To make sure that people, are prepared, right? Prepared for the fight, and that they get out and get the work done that needs to be done. So tell me what Advance Carolina is doing in these last, really, I feel like I almost want to say in these last few days, but I guess it's last few weeks before actual election day. What's the work look like?
We are less than 60 days away, and even sooner than that, early voting starts. You can vote absentee by mail, hopefully sometime in the next 3 weeks. But if not, early voting has 17 days of opportunity for individuals to vote across the state in all 100 counties. What we're going to be doing is talking to voters now about what's at stake. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it as much today, but down ballot is really important. When we talk about criminal justice, when we talk about school shootings and mass murders, and the ability for our cops to stop policing us and really getting a standpoint of fighting back against gun violence, that's at stake on the ballot. These are down ballot races, Board of Education. And so really focusing in over the next few weeks with our core constituent basis of faith, Divine Nine, shout out to all of our HBCUs. Our homecomings are coming up. We're going to be there. And I think it's critically important, too, that we're not missing the opportunity to still have conversation with folks that are skeptical, right? With folks that are not excited, that didn't go to the DNC, that don't care about, some of those optics of representation politics. We can talk about those issues because our groups, we're not focused on the politics. We're close to the people. And that's what we're going to try to do over the next 60 days. And then also make sure that we're standing up a good offensive strategy to combat these racist voter intimidation tactics that we're seeing. And then even after the election, making sure folks stay focused. After those watch parties, we need to go straight to the Board of Election, making sure every vote counts.
Well, that's right. And I know that at the end of 2020, we spent a lot of time trying to make sure both that we were making sure that folks were protected when they were going to the polls, but also thinking about what the aftermath was and kind of doing some scenario planning about making sure that all the votes got counted. So, Marcus, I'm going to thank you once again, but I also know that I'm going to have you back to sort of keep us posted and updated on what's happening in North Carolina. Appreciate the work that you all doing, and I'll actually see you soon. But thank you so much for joining us. In a moment, we're going to talk to Rebecca Carruthers, the Vice President of the Fair Election Center, right here on KBLA Talk 1580 about Ohio.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Witt. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A new report says black enrollment has dipped at several top colleges since the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action programs. NBC News says Amherst College, MIT, and Washington University in St. Louis are among the schools reporting a drop in black population since 2022. The Trump campaign is being ordered to pause the use of a song co-written by Isaac Hayes, who's black. Last month, the estate of Hayes threatened Trump's campaign with legal action if it did not stop using Hold On, I'm Coming. On Tuesday, a federal judge in Atlanta, Georgia, issued a ruling temporarily blocking Trump from using the song. And you can hear the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on the Black Information Network Tuesday night. Then we'll have political analysis live right here at its completion. And in our latest exclusive Black Information Network poll, we're now less than 60 days away from Election Day. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Have a hot spot right now, 101 northbound the Hollywood Freeway past First Street as you head toward the Civic Center. It's a brush fire burning on the right-hand shoulder, and you're slow coming away from the 5, right in the heart of the East LA interchange. In the San Fernando Valley, not far from Van Nuys, 405 northbound before Roscoe Boulevard is a stalled dump truck tying up the middle lanes. West 134 before Lancashire Boulevard, a crash cleared from the carpool and left lanes.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In 2 days, we'll have an idea of how good the Chargers and Rams might be this season. Both teams open the 2024 NFL regular season on Sunday. The Chargers are at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Rams will be in Detroit. The Jim Harbaugh era officially begins on Sunday. A lot of folks are counting on Harbaugh to improve on the Chargers' 5-12 finish last season. Expectations are a little higher with the Rams. They were a playoff team last season in what was supposed to be a rebuilding year. The number one objective for the Rams is to keep quarterback Matthew Stafford healthy. A full recap on the Chargers and Rams on Monday. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA, join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports talk and insights with some flavor. You're welcome to join the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today. Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date? With a COVID shot this season, designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and I am excited to be joined now by Rebecca Carruthers, who is the Vice President of the Fair Election Center. Welcome, Rebecca, and thank you for joining. I'm really excited to talk to you about a whole host of things, but particularly about what's happening in Ohio. But I wanted to, before we get started, to just ask you to share with our listeners the great work of the Fair Election Center and what you all do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Adrianne, for having me on this afternoon in LA, but I'm on the East Coast today, so this evening in DC. So thank you so much.
Afternoon, and I think and hot in both places, no doubt.
Yeah, so we got a little bit more humidity. So with the Fair Election Center, we've been around since 2006. We are a national nonpartisan voting rights organization. We focus on 3 program areas. The first is called workelections.org, where we work to recruit poll workers. We help co-found Power the Polls. So it is our belief that when you have a diversity of age and ethnic and racial diversity of folks working the polls, it makes those within community feel more comfortable and confident and willing to show up to vote. So our mission in that work is to make sure that those working the polls are reflective of the community where the polling location is in. The second area is our voting rights project. That is where we do impact litigation, and we do both federal and state advocacy. We are currently busy suing up and down the United States, especially in areas where you have anti-democratic legislators who are trying to make it harder for people to vote, which is moving backwards instead of moving forward. So in Arizona, we're busy in litigation with the Show Your Papers law, where people now have to double down and prove their citizenship as they're trying to vote, even though in the registration process there is an attestation saying that you are eligible to vote on the particular, whether it's the federal ballot in Arizona or the state ballot in Arizona. Last year we had 60% of the federal cases on voting rights restoration. So for many of our loved ones who are returning citizens, they're leaving prison and they're coming back into community in an effort to try to rebuild their lives. One of the best things that they can do is be engaged civically. And one of those things of citizenship in this country is exercising the right to vote. So we've been going after governors like in Virginia, or even the governor of Kentucky, quite frankly. This isn't necessarily a Democrat or Republican thing in terms of making sure there isn't an arbitrary right to restore your right to vote back. It should be very clear. It should be in statute so people understand. And then finally, we have the Campus Vote Project, which is the largest C3 organizing effort on college campuses across the country. Currently, we're impacting about 4.6 million students. We hire students. We call them Democracy Fellows. They are hired where they work with their campus administrators to make sure there's a plan of action for students to be able to vote on campuses. And then we do a dynamic HBCU program.
I want to come back. I know I'm trying to hold that off for a minute because I want to come back and talk to you about
Ohio.
about that one. But let's get. So I do want to. I don't know if folks are aware of what is happening in Ohio with the Secretary of State and the General Assembly attempting to limit drop boxes. And I know there's other shenanigans as well. But we just finished a conversation with Marcus Bass from Advanced Carolina talking about the fact that the absentee ballots are now going to be delayed in North Carolina. They're supposed to go out today. They're going to be delayed because RFK Jr. is attempting to get his name, suing to get his name off the ballot. And so because his name is on the ballot, they have delayed the ballots going out. And so I know that we see this going on across the country, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what is the thing that's happening in Ohio, and why is that so disruptive for voters?
So what's happening in Ohio is that there are 88 counties in Ohio. Each county has one ballot drop boxes. Now, once again, in the 2020 midterms, over 8 million people cast their ballot in Ohio. So there's only one ballot drop box per county in Ohio.
I can't even. Can you just say that one more time?
So
a single ballot
Ohio,
drop box.
Yes,
in
in
whole
Ohio,
county.
there are 88 counties. In Ohio, there are 88 drop boxes for ballots.
Yeah,
Just so
you're not trying to
understand
make
what's
it
going
easy for
on.
people to vote. Yeah.
Yes, and there's millions and millions of people in Ohio.
Yeah.
So first of all, just having one ballot drop box per county isn't exactly what you do if you're trying to make it easier for people to be able to vote. Because as we know, in this economy, and just in life, you know, we need to have flexibility and time so people are able to actually cast their ballot. Because if you have kids, if you have parents you're taking care of, if you have other obligations, sometimes it's hard, you know, during voting hours to go in if there's early voting and to cast your ballot. So having the ability to put your ballot in a drop box after hours and for your vote to then be counted. So Frank LaRose is saying, oh, no, we need to get rid of that. And then there's like other things that he's trying to propose. Like if you have someone in your life who has a disability or a neighbor and they ask you, hey, can you grab my ballot, my vote by, you know, can you grab my ballot and can you turn it in for me? He's trying to get rid of things like that.
Helping your friends and neighbors. They're trying to get rid of helping your friends and neighbors.
Oh, right. Because we wouldn't want that. That's bad for a community, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, this is sort of, the outrageousness, I don't know, the egregiousness of that somehow having a single drop box in an entire county is just too much. It's too much access, right? It's too much fairness. It's too much fairness. That we have to throw more obstacles in people's way. And so are voters in Ohio aware that this is happening, or how are you all helping to make sure that voters know what's happening? Because clearly they also need to be engaging their state legislators.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, it's being proposed. We work with, even though we're a national organization, we have in-state staff in Ohio, and we're working with a lot of the coalition groups across the state because we want to make sure that voters understand what's going on, and especially with our campus work, we have to make sure that students understand, hey, they're trying to take away one of the options in which how you cast and turn in your ballot. So we're trying to make sure we're keeping our eye on this. Yeah. Because we're going to have to quickly, you know, educate voters on what to do in order to participate in these upcoming elections.
That's right. Okay, so we have a lot more to talk about both the work of your organization, but also what's happening in other places around the country, because obviously Ohio,
Texas,
North Carolina are
Georgia.
not the only ones. In Georgia, that's right. So when we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation with Rebecca Carruthers. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys. Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet? Grab the keys.
How about we, drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
Okay, this is the Black Pack, and we are talking with Rebecca Carruthers, the Vice President of the Fair Election Center. And Rebecca, when we're talking about Ohio and the attempt to really reduce access, right, to make it more complicated, less easy, right, for folks to be able to cast their ballots. We talked with Marcus Bass a few minutes ago about what's happening in North Carolina. Give us just the sort of tick list of what is happening and where are things happening in states, because we know that state legislatures are active, right, trying to make it more complicated for voters to participate. We know that there is, a presidential candidate who is constantly, throwing around words like voter fraud, in an attempt to, see doubt about our election processes. What is happening in the states? Just sort of like a quick tick list. If people, if you were to say, keep your eye on these things or these kinds of things, what are those?
Well, shout out to Marcus, who's doing some really great work in North Carolina. My organization has partnered with him, done a lot of great stuff, especially with HBCUs there. I'm going to mention the most egregious thing that's happening today.
Okay.
There's so much that's been happening. So we're going to go to Texas. So in Texas, Governor Abbott last month said, hey, in the last couple of years since 2020, we've gotten rid of 1 million voters on the voting rolls. We've eliminated them as voters, right? Yeah. So some of the largest counties, like Harris County, which is home to Houston, Bexar County, which is home to San Antonio, Travis County, which is home to Austin. Right. Their county officials decided, hey, you know what? We're going to send out voter registration applications to folks who aren't registered because we actually think we need to do our jobs, which is trying to encourage people to register to vote, right? Well, then Ken Paxton, who is the Attorney General, who was almost impeached, he's a Republican, almost impeached
can't
by
believe
an
he's still in
overwhelmingly
office.
Republican chamber, yes, accused of some very credible felonious things. He told Bexar County, hey, if you actually move forward with proactively trying to register people to vote, we're going to sue you. A couple of days ago, he sues Bexar County, and then today, just a few hours ago, he sues Travis County because Austin decided, hey, it's in our best interest to make sure our citizens have the information they need in order to register to vote. And now Harris County, which is home to Houston, they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? Because October 7th voter registration deadline is coming up. Do we play chicken with the governor and the AG? Do we actually do our jobs, which is to try to register people to vote?
Right. It is. We talk about living in an authority. We talk about living, like not wanting to move, to have America move in the direction of, being an authoritarian nation. These kinds of tactics, though, I mean, literally saying that it is that suing election officials for doing the job of registering to people to vote. Like, we are all the way through the looking glass on this.
Well, we've heard people say, when people say who they are, I think it was Maya Angelou, you better believe them.
Right.
So we have 2 candidates on the ballot. At the top of the ticket, we have many candidates down ballot. Right. Now, I represent a nonpartisan organization, but one thing that we do stress is it is important to look at who is going to support and uphold democracy in this country. And we do see a clear contrast between a candidate saying, hey, you vote for me in 2024, you don't have to worry about voting again.
Yes.
Pay attention when someone's using fascist and authoritarian language because they mean it.
That's right. I did a little segment at the top of the show about saying that my favorite childhood Sesame Street segment was one of these things is not like the other, and that is a perfect description of the election that we are currently in. So I've said a couple times we have a little bit more time, but I do want to make sure that we talk about the student work that you all do. We've seen lots of kind of excitement and energy, particularly among HBCU students, and I know the students that we work with at Black Pack. But can you talk a little bit about the work that you all do in terms of focusing on students and making sure that you're addressing the ways in which they're impacted in these in elections as well, and particularly in an election like this?
So we work on campuses year in and year out. We're there whether or not there's a federal election, a state election or not. We are there year round because we believe in our mission that it's important to make sure that students and administrators understand the importance of civic engagement. So now in the 2024 major election year, this spring, many of our democracy fellows worked with their campus administrators on what the plan is for the fall. What is the plan to make sure that campuses are activating their students?
Right.
And one reason why we're doing this work is the Higher Education Act says if a campus receives federal funding, they have to provide opportunities for students to register to vote and also alert them when it's time to vote. So these are things that are federal rules. These are the things that campuses should be doing.
Right.
And so to that extent, students are returning to campus during Welcome Week and freshman orientation. On some of our campus, the Vice President of Student Affairs got up and said, hey, do you need information on how to register to vote? Some of our campuses, students are able to text to get information. They can go to their campus's website. But we're also doing a series of activations over the next 60-ish days to make sure that students are voting.
Less than 60 days.
Yes. See what, we're 59 maybe?
Yeah, it's hard. The thing is that it's both too soon and too far away.
Yes. One of our activations that we're excited about, trademark pending, is called Vote Coming. And this is where we're doing a series of culturally competent activations across HBCUs.
Okay.
And so we're targeting homecoming season. And for the campuses where we physically will not be at, we're putting together a toolkit called Vote Coming in a Box, where it provides content and information and resources for campuses to activate their students to vote.
And on that note, how would people get in touch with you all to if there's students that are listening or folks who work with HBCU campuses, how would they reach out to you all to get to be a part of the Vote Coming activities?
Absolutely. So if you are a student and you are interested, you can follow any of our social media handles at Fair Elections. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Instagram. We're also on Snapchat. You could go to our website, which is fairelections.org. If you are an HBCU student, you can reach out directly out to Dylan Sellers or Justin Calhoun. They are part of our national HBCU team. If you are a student at a predominantly white institution, you can reach out to Mike Burns, who is National Director of our Campus Vote Project.
Okay. Well, I will try to make sure that we put that information on our Instagram page so that or on my personal Instagram page so that folks have that information, because I think that there's oftentimes a lot of students, a lot of people, frankly, who are looking for ways to participate. They want to figure out how they can help both inform and educate and also turn out the vote. So I think any resources like what you all are providing will just be really important, right, for folks to be able to get their hands on. So I appreciate you sharing that, and also joining me to talk about how difficult it is, right? Like we're it is there are constantly hurdles being placed in front of voters in states across this country, making it more difficult. And I think one of the things that Marcus said, and I'll give you, 30 seconds to say as well, but all is not lost, right? There are I see these attempts to make it harder, but all is not lost. I'm sure you share that sentiment.
Yeah, all is not lost. As we've seen over a dozen states make it harder to vote, but we've also seen over a dozen states look for ways to actually encourage more people to get involved and to vote. One thing that I would tell people, we know that gerrymandering is real. We know that extreme partisan maps is a thing that disenfranchises people, because that's what's happening in like Texas. Yeah. But if you are in Ohio, there is a Fair Maps ballot initiative, which will then take it out of the hands of people like Frank LaRose, and instead having a nonpartisan independent commission drawing maps that fairly represents people, so your voices are fairly represented in the state legislature there. Okay. And so there are plenty of things to vote for, and I know different people are upset. They're hearing a lot of misinformation, but there's so much going on your ballot this fall. Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that, because there is more than the presidential on your ballot. And so look for some of those ballot initiatives that are going to benefit you and your community as well. Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President of the Fair Election Center, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you'll come back and join us and sort of keep us up to date on the work that you all are doing. I had a chance to talk with Maurice Mitchell, the National Director of the Working Families Party, earlier this week. And so on the other side, we're going to take a listen to that conversation. We have a lot more to talk about here on KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Black Pack.
Want you to know I'm a rainbow too. So to the rescue. Here I am.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A new report says black enrollment has dipped at several top colleges since the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action programs. NBC News says Amherst College, MIT, and Washington University in St. Louis are among the schools reporting a drop in black population since 2022. The Trump campaign is being ordered to pause the use of a song co-written by Isaac Hayes